Our next very exciting session of the day is on the topic of next-gen shift, evolving disruptions in the business of realty. So let's talk about disruptions that we had touched upon in our last session. The session will be moderated by Mr. Gulam, Senior Executive Director, Research, Advisory, Infrastructure, and Valuation, Knight Frank India Private Limited. Gulam has a vast experience across the entire gamut of real estate, from valuations, consulting, transactions, and project management, to working with clients across governments, corporates, and public sector companies. His current role comprises the firm's strategic initiatives, managing key developer relationships, and implementing growth strategies for advisory, retail, and hospitality sectors. Let me introduce our speakers of the session now. Mr. Abhishek Kiran Gupta, CEO and co-founder, CRE Matrix and Index Stack. Mr. Gupta headed research at JLL for over 5 years and had headed real estate desk at Bank of America for 5 years. Currently, he leads CRE Matrix and Index Stack, the real estate analytics startup offering accurate, real-time, comprehensive, and authentic data on offices, residential, warehouses across all major Indian cities to developers, brokers, banks, investors, and home buyers. Let me introduce our next speaker, Aayush Puri, Head Anacity, ANAROCK Group Business Services Private Limited. He has played a pivotal role in revolutionizing the community management industry in the GCC region, building Anacity as one of the leading community management solutions in a very short time span. As a data-driven individual, Aayush is passionate about exploring emerging technologies. Our next speaker, let me introduce Gopal Sarda, founder and CEO, Vibe Realty Private Limited. Gopal Sarda has also been the ex-group CEO of Koltepaltil Developers Limited and has a proven track record of getting capital allocation right, structuring unique deals, generating strong returns, and envisioning and executing long-term blueprints. His leadership and his 360-degree business strategies made his past organization outperform all its competitors. Next panel member is Nihar Thanawala, Managing Director, Motilal Oswal Alternates. Nihar is responsible for deal sourcing, investing, monitoring, managing exits, and fundraising with focus on North and West markets. And prior to joining Motilal Oswal Real Estate, he has worked with Ask Property Investment Advisors and Ernst & Young, and Thanawala also brings with him entrepreneurship experience. Our next and final member, I introduce Mr. Parth Mehta, Founder, Chairman, and Managing Director, Paradigm Realty. Parth brings with him over 15 years of expertise and leadership in the areas of real estate analysis, strategies, valuation, business development, fundraising, corporate sales, and investment with due diligence. He is a seasoned real estate entrepreneur with deal-making acumen in SRA and joint developments, joint ventures, and development management format. So let me now hand it over to our Mr. Zia, a very fantastic seasoned players. We have young players, but seasoned in their own way. So Mr. Zia, over to you now. I think you're on mute, Mr. Zia.
Hi, so to start with, it shows that an old man still has a problem starting a mic. So thank you so much, Sapna, for giving us this opportunity. And I must tell you that starting this session sharp at the time given was great. It's very rare that the seminars follow that absolute timeline. And I would love to see that we hand it over back to you within the time that you've allotted to us in an hour. An hour is good enough. I think I have a pretty good panel here, very diversified experiences, and I'll be glad that I won't have to speak much. I would love to see them talking, interacting amongst themselves, because I still find myself out of place, perhaps the oldest of the lot. And I would love to see them interacting amongst themselves, because the theme that we have today to start with is 40 under 40 to start with, which is appreciating the youngsters who are now flooding the markets. On the other side, talking about disruption. So just a little backdrop, or the way I look at this whole subject is, I read about it that when Mr. Narayan Murthy started Infosys, he was in his late 30s, and that was in 1981. And today I have here likes of Aayush Puris, etc., who are starting their own businesses in their 20s. And if I then look at many other such, especially the prop tech firms, etc., and a few of them have been big ones. We got investments from the likes of SoftBanks, etc., billion-dollar kind of companies and so on. And all of them have been led by youngsters in their 20s, late 20s or early 30s. So there's a big shift. And that's exactly what the disruption perhaps is what we are today focusing in this session. How the youngsters are bringing in this huge shift of mindset, bringing in new ideas to the industry, which is supposed to be very, very archaic. I would want to believe, I'm a civil engineer, 35 odd years of work ex. In engineering technology per se, there's hardly any change that has happened. So you go to an L&T, ECCs or etc., Shapoji Palanji, I don't really see much of a change in actual construction technology. The huge change is coming in is from the client perspective, from PropTech, a lot of these solutions, which I'm sure Aayush and Abhishek, etc., will talk about. And likes of Parth, I would say, who have been using or who would love to infuse these technologies in the industry to make more efficiencies, bringing in more efficiencies, profitabilities, and so on and so forth. So here it's a heady mix of experience as well as youth energy. So to start with, I would love to start, and all those who are closer to my age bracket, please don't take an offense. I would love to start with Aayush, purely because it's about disruption. And purely because it's about, the whole technology that the disruption is, the technology which is bringing in that disruption. So Aayush, at a macro level, I'm sure you would love to talk about the community software that you're doing and so on. But if you have to look at the macro picture, what's your view? How is this huge, big change coming in? And what is it that you would want to see the developers like Parth, etc., to use your services to bring in more efficiencies and value for stakeholders? Over to you, Aayush.
Super. Thanks for that. So just a couple of things here, in terms of the real estate industry, and I'll focus a little bit more on to the Indian market. Real estate has been one of the last adopters of technology. And this is what we had faced when we were starting in about 3 years ago with the PropTech platforms that we had built. As compared to a GCC, wherein we were very quickly able to, capitalize onto that market. Real estate in India has been one of the last adopters of technology, and rightly so. There has been resistance in adopting technology within real estate because in India, traditionally, a lot of the developers have been non-tech. They've been very successful without really this kind of digitization disrupting them. And the other thing is, even currently with the millennials, they're moving more towards the FMCG or banking or fintech industry, right? So not as much into real estate. But the encouraging thing for India is that we are one of the last industries now to be disrupted by technology. Of course, after COVID-19, the government's push, customer awareness, they all have really accelerated the pace of which digitization is occurring, which is very good news for solution providers like us. Everyone knows that after COVID-19, we had one of the largest and fastest shifts of human behavior, which we as Anacity then also capitalized on. Aside from that, the Indian government is really pushing on digitization. And we see this in all the sectors, not just real estate. But they're sort of making up for the last, many years of lost time within this sector to adopt this kind of technology. So I think that's really helped. And lastly, of course, customers today are more inclined to go digital. So as you mentioned, developers such as Parth and multiple other developers within the Indian real estate segment. They are also now realizing that their buyers or the customers, they are more digitally aware and digitally connected. So, the focus really needs to be on these residents, on the buyers of these particular units, whether, it is phygital, not completely digital. I mean, even something like an Amazon Fresh is still phygital, right? You still have somebody as a support manager that's there to take care of sort of the queries that come in. But at the same time, we've now seen that the Indian market is opening up to PropTech. The developers are now also more open to understanding the change in customer behavior, becoming a little more agile and nimble in terms of adopting technology. And we'll hear more on this panel as well. And within the Indian market, you see that over the next few years, at least globally, we've seen that it's now going to be about a $30 billion industry, and we are very excited about coming into the Indian market. And we've seen a quick, rapid growth in this space, and we've learned that technology can really disrupt any space. In any kind of technology, in any kind of prop tech, new players that are coming up. So that's a little overall in terms of macro, where I definitely see real estate adopting technology, and would be great to hear a little bit more in terms of from Abhishek, from the panel as well. And over to you, Gulam. I'll let you direct it.
Thanks a lot for making a backdrop of what technology and how the disruption it is bringing in without getting into the specifics. Thanks a lot, Aayush, for setting the backdrop. Now with that, and because I can't say no to Aayush ordering me to go over to Abhishek, so coming to you, Abhishek. So Abhishek, and also because we are on technology, because the users, I'll come to the users slightly later to start with, because the tech domain is what the two of you bring the huge experience upon. So Abhishek, to you, I recall, I can share that about 8-10 years back, my own team had started getting into the whole data domain, etc. I realized that selling data was the toughest job those days. I don't know if it has changed at all, but here it is. Two things I would love to seek from you, Abhishek. One, how difficult it was to start with an idea which was, while all of us knew, I'm sure while you were in JLL, Abhishek, sitting on the other side, and trying to make sense of what is happening around without help of that data. Then you started creating or putting together that data yourself. Now that data, selling it to the users, how tough was that? Have we still reached that stage where we could see that we have arrived? Because I do see a serious dearth of data. Even for my business, we need huge amount of data, and we don't really see it coming in so easy.
तो मैं उसको although time हुए फिर भी मैं उसको 2-3 क्वेश्चन इसीलिए पूछे कि उसको ऐसा ना लगे कि क्या मैं किस लिए आया था यहाँ पे, so
Sapna, I'm sorry, can I request you to mute yourself, please? I think unless you have a question for Abhishek. Sorry. So Abhishek, over to you. This entire change that India is looking into with availability of data at your fingertips. And also, I would love for you to also say, where is the future heading? Because we do see, as I speak about, some big bang names who are not there anymore. Technology is at a cusp where we all say that we need technology. But the question that technology is future right now, how is it going to be? I understand Aayush made a very valid point that digitization in the country happening, broadband, everything else, infrastructure is huge. But at the same time, a lot of these big firms are also falling by the wayside. So Abhishek, slightly wider a perspective that I would seek from you. Over to you, Abhishek.
That is a long question, but let me see how much of it I remember. Okay, so Gulam, 6 years with JLL trying to create data, and then 5 years at Bank of America, where I became a client of my own REIS product. So I've been on both sides, and I realized where the lacuna is and what do people want, right? All our lives, we worried about commercial real estate because it was a smaller market. It is still a smaller market. Malls, there are not more than 50 malls in Bombay. Probably not more than 10,000 offices in Bombay. But look at residential, that's the big brother. And that nobody did. Nobody did it. So when we started CRE Matrix, we said, let's focus on everything. And I think being on both sides of the fence really helped me understand what the B2B customer wants and what the B2C customer wants. Let me throw some questions at you. Okay, and to everybody. Would you, and this is B2B and B2C both. Huh? So one side, let's talk about a bank, and the other side, a home buyer who wants to buy a house or rent a house. Do you think he knows what rent his neighbor is paying and at what price he bought the house? No, he did not know that. After index tab, that answer is possible. The answer is yes. Okay. Now, does Nihar validate and verify all the sales assumptions that Parth would, Parth and Nihar met the other day, right? When we were in a conversation, would Nihar know whatever Parth says is correct? I mean, I will sell X number of houses in X number of period. Very fair. He'll do it. But we need to validate and verify the data. We can do it for them, right? Do Parth and Gopal know how many apartments are sold in Bandra and at what price and who's selling it? No, they would not know it. CRE Matrix and it can happen. Gulam, yourself, would you know how much is the total value of housing sold in MMR last year? Maybe you know it, but many people don't. CRE Matrix and Index Tab have made this happen. 10 years back, this was a dream, a pipe dream. Now it is a reality. This is disruption. And a very, very prominent Blackstone CEO said, it's better to make no decisions sometimes, and making poor decisions, it can cause a lot of loss of money, right? Especially from an investor coming. So to my mind, this is disruption. And you know, these two brands have taken us 7 years to build where we are today. A lot of rich content is given to the market, and you can just open the app. You can open Index app and just go and search for any building. Look at Parth's building. It will tell you everything what Parth has sold at your fingertips in your pajamas sipping coffee.
So my question is that now connected to that, Abhishek, very valid point. And here it is. You know, the gentleman that you spoke about, a quotable quote, etc. But for last so many decades, ever since the Industrial Revolution came, the work was going on. I'm sure today when you're talking about, perhaps it's more of an efficiency, but what is a big game changer? You know, not taking a decision was obviously an option for last 7 decades and more, but people did take a decision and also survived and perhaps did better. We are in a situation today when we have all that access to data, and many of the countries are falling by the wayside, inflation and you know, economies falling apart, etc., etc. So where is that logic that you don't take a decision if you don't have the data?
Okay, so I'll answer this question in two real examples. These are real examples. Bank 1 wanted to open a new branch in Powai. They called us and they said, we want to know all the other banks in Powai, what are they paying in terms of rent? Okay, the quote that they got from the landlord was 2x at what some of the other banks were paying. Now, had they gone ahead with that deal without data, God bless them, somebody would have lost their job, right? And I don't want to be rude, but you can imagine 2x for a bank to pay on a 20-year lease would be a lot of money. Right? And banks, you just do the math, you know, 1,000 square feet branch, even if you would have paid, you know, 50, 100 rupees extra, that's a lot of money. This is one example. Second, we get love letters from people who look at the app and tell us, I've looked at your app, I've gone to the landlord and got my rent reduced by 2,000 rupees. A gentleman who's paying 20,000 rupees rent monthly, if he gets his rent reduced by 2,000, that's a lot of money saving for him. And mind it, even the Supreme Court cannot dispute this data because it's coming from the actual registered stamp duty paid document, right? So that is the authenticity and power of data. Now that wasn't there 10 years back. It was all anecdotal. It was all what the developers felt. Yeah, they made wonderful buildings, but they made some wonderful mistakes also.
Sure, I'll come back to you. And because you had brought in our last discussion where Nihar and Parth were supposed to meet, I'll come over to Nihar now. Nihar, a very valid point that Abhishek put on the table, that you know, you have access to data which makes you, you know, take better decisions. Obviously, do your own background checks, etc., before you sign the dotted line, etc. But is that it? Is that what all disruption is all about, Nihar? You have been on the other side. You have been on the financing side for so long, and because we're talking about a financial scenario where you would have somebody like a Parth knocking your doors for a good deal, etc. But is that it? Just the data is what it takes for you to arrive at a good decision, Nihar?
So I'll tell you, I think, you know, I agree with a lot of points that Abhishek brought out. You know, I think the availability of certain data has certainly helped us make better projections and get a better handle. More importantly, remove the gap which may be there between what hearsay is and what reality is, right? I think there is still a lot of journey, right, to be covered in terms of having the right kind of data available. I'll give you a simple example, and this is a discussion I keep having with the team, that we have everything that we want to know with respect to what's happened in the past. But unfortunately, the most important thing for a business like ours is to project what's going to happen in the future. Because if we are going to invest in a particular project, we want to know what kind of supply is going to come up in that market. There is no information available on that. For an industry of our size, if you go to any other industry, any FMCG, anything, you have such granular data available. But in an industry of our size, which is probably the largest one in the country compared to the others, nobody can tell today that if I take any micro market, what's the upcoming supply in the next 1 year? 1 year. I'm not even saying 3 years, 1 year alone, right? So I think one is data definitely makes a difference. But I'll be honest, you know, we talk about technology. Usually technology becomes by default akin to information technology. And as a result, things like data, applications, mobile, I think a lot of focus that we are now putting is what kind of evolution developers have gone through with respect to other kinds of technology, such as construction technology, development technology. Because what we are seeing is somebody who is upping the game on that is saving at least 10% on the bottom line by constructing 20 to 30% faster than any other developer. That is a huge saving. That is a huge plus point, because if there is a certain amount of bottom line that can get enhanced, eventually the goal is that you can share some piece of the pie and the larger piece can still go to the developer. More importantly, it becomes a good margin of safety and becomes a good edge. You can price your product better and sell better in the market. Overall, timely delivery means better brand. So if you think about it, right, it has such a cascading effect, positive one, right? Just being able to do that. So that's one front. Second is, there are certain brands which will be maybe the top 5 brands in every city, who will obviously have a certain premium and they'll sell well. But what we've observed is even a lot of other developers who are not as large brands sell phenomenally well. And the one thing that distinguishes them from the others who could perception-wise be even larger is the way they market, the way they track, how their leads are getting converted, how they are working around that. The way they go about doing that in a clinical manner gives them results, right? And they actually use those data points for the next project and so on and so forth, right? Things like lifetime value, things like, lead to conversion, things like cost per acquisition. None of these concepts existed in this sector, at least. These are very common terminology if you go into the startup fraternity, but out here, they didn't exist. Today, we see some people who are actually tracking these data points, doing something about it, and actually generating better sales. So with time, this data that Abhishek spoke about has certainly been of help, but these are other kinds of, technology inflection points that we see, right, which are actually making people run business far more efficiently. And we are now giving a lot of weight to some of these things also.
Thanks a lot, Nihar. I think that's exactly where my next question will come towards Parth. And of course, Gopal, will come to you in a short while. But because what you raised and something which I started in my backdrop as well, as an engineer, 30 odd years, 33 odd years of work ex, and I haven't really seen much of a difference in actual construction. आज भी हम साइट पे लाइन डोरी ओलंबा और वो सब उसके बगैर काम नहीं होता. I'm sure Parth would relate to it. So here, while there is a lot happening all over the world, including India as well, Parth, now coming to you with this specific thing which even Nihar spoke about, that technology is happening, but it is very superficial because it is assumed to be information technology. What about the hardcore engineering side of it? Because as a developer, I'm sure you would give a lot of, if not equal importance, to not just, marketing and sales, but also to construction, also to strategy, also to, maintenance when Aayush will come in the picture, taking care of the assets, etc. It's a very, very wide, gamut of things, but our focus is, at least the way it appears, is very, very narrow. So Parth, the question is to you. Out of the whole, bouquet of, whether it is prop tech, fintech services, whatever available to you, how many are you using and as a developer? And what is it that you aspire to get? I'm sure there'll be some ideas coming out of exact need of a developer. So Parth, over to you with this question, please.
Yes. Hi, good afternoon, Gulam. Good afternoon, everybody. So adding what Abhishek mentioned, Aayush, and what Nihar added, see, real estate being the core brick and mortar business, technology is one enhancer now, which gives us a very clear data points, very clear, objective, accountable losses, result, non-results. We're able to get that. But as an organization, coming from a background who I've been all my life working under corporate culture or growing developers. So when we started our own company, we realized there was definitely a need to stitch all these things together to get an efficient product. Because we realized one thing, that everything narrows down of how reasonable can you sell and how better product you can give in terms of efficiency, fast delivery, etc. So for example, as an organization, what we follow is something like a BIM technology in terms of our designing and architecture. So we know at every level what are the wastages, how the building is shaping up during the course of construction. Today, conventionally, a 40-story building used to take 6-7 years to deliver, say, having 600-700 apartments. Today, we are proudly saying we're delivering under 32 months, 750,000, almost 3-4 million square feet with 700 apartments. So that's only possible when everyone is integrated. Now, in that, what are the things that, as a checklist, that an organization should ensure? This is a slightly on the technical side, because you'll have uninterrupted RMC support. So you should have a close tie-up with a batching plant or have a batching plant in your own system. 2, in a city like Mumbai, where you are close to the ocean, westerly winds, you should have a facade consultant on board, because every building has a different system where, in terms of rattling of noise with the aircraft moving in or water and wind blowing together. So every window, it cannot be one for all for one. It has to be a la carte. Design of windows and monitoring how you're using the sections. 3, what kind of waterproofing systems you're using. Conventionally, kya tha, khali bathroom mein you've made a waterproofing and you've given it all. But today we ensure that we do proper waterproofing full floor. That tomorrow when Gulam changes the marble or tile on his floor, it should not leak on Aayush's flat below, where it spoils his false ceiling and interiors. Conventional things like what Hiranandani used to do since 20 years, have a double wall, external wall, so that tomorrow any kind of issues happen across 20-25 years also, water will not seep in through the dead wall, etc. So now, when coming from a family who's been into contracting business, we understand few basics have not changed from generations, but how to sequence it in today's manner, where how we educated people are able to stitch and intertwine these things, are all that's going to result into a good product. For simple things, today in a city like Mumbai, people don't plan an outlet, inlet, or a drainage pipe for air condition. So you go in any compound, water is leaking. But these are the simple things that a provision need to be kept. Or a simple thing like a gas line. After OC, people drill into the plaster, water comes from there, it will start leaking. But you can keep a provision of a sleeve where you know that technically that glass line is going to come after OC. Now, these are certain FAQs which today's time, what I see in the new generation of developers who've come scratch up or who able to get a good team in place, are very clear that these are my SOPs without which I'll not make a building. Now, this is a differentiating, see, good product, good quality tiles, good branded elevator, good gym equipments, good rooftop areas, good landscape is given. Without this, no customer will come to you. But what is that X factor that you're able to bring in as a developer to your product, of what kind of quality versus finesse is something that's going to derive sale in time to come. So I think all the people who are here right now are prevalent to how the new way of working is, but B, also the information flow and the awareness that the customer has, he's far more technically more sound than you. So only sales pitch is not going to lead to a conversion. It's going to be how hard-hitting facts and raw details you can give to your client, that tomorrow when a door shuts, it should not get a crack on a plaster. So what kind of rubber you're putting on the door, it doesn't flow. How my plaster shouldn't start falling off after 5 years. So I believe in today's time, if as a content-wise your product is not good, there's no way you will get sale velocity or a price pent up, and you'll be lost in the clutter.
Good, thank you so much. Perhaps one or two things still remain to be answered, but I'll come back to you with that part. Now, coming to Gopal. Gopal, you have been, as a CEO of Kolte Patil, have seen the traditional way of constructing buildings. No, I hold Rajesh Bhai in high regard, but then I'm sure he's here for maybe at least 3-4 decades. And here you are, starting your own venture now, also getting into it with more of the wisdom that you have picked up from there and the youth energy coming on the table. And because the subject today is about disruption and essentially about technology, prop tech, this, that, and so on, how do you see you will be able to deliver your products to your stakeholders in a more efficient way than what were you doing earlier in, say, Kolte Patil as a CEO? Over to you, Gopal.
Thank you. I think you have given me a lot of room to just explain the heart over here. I think it's a very valid question, because traditionally people were going in a repetition of products. Like, pre-pandemic, it was affordable, was the flavor of the market. Then post-pandemic, the luxury has started moving up. The sizes have gone down and up. Now, I feel the entire flavor of the market, the customer behavior pattern has been completely changed. Earlier, the sizes were on the lower side. Now the sizes on the higher side. See, I feel today only delivery is not going to be the game changer. See, before RERA, delivery was playing a phenomenal role because customers were going to a developer who are on time, and there were a lot of developers who are fly by night and they were not delivering on time. So delivery was playing a significant role. The one who was delivering on time, he was achieving maximum sales and he was sort of leading the market. But now post RERA, I think on-time delivery is a common factor for everyone because we have a stipulated guideline we have to deliver on that front. Today, developer has to understand one thing: FSI is what they are getting, but they can't only run behind FSI. They have to plan in such a manner that they are taking care of the consumer behavior pattern, what are their likings, how the changes are happening, at the same time maintaining their profitability and margin. Because if you only go for FSI consumption and just planning design around it, then you won't be able to catch the zeal of the market. You won't be able to attract the price premium. So I correlate this with the design. Nowadays, design is basically the heart of real estate. Entire thing is moving around design. Based on your design, your product pricing, based on your design, your velocity, and based on design, your cost optimization and on-time deliveries, and also in RERA you have to phases the overall consumption so that your cash flow manages. So we have to focus on the best design wherein you are taking care of sunlight, ventilation, proper utilization of the floor plans from the customer perspective. There are new things like somebody wants a small office in the residential premises, or probably work from home concept, or probably somebody has sort of a lavish living dining. So you cannot go with your old pattern. You have to bring the design aspect and mix it so well that sometimes you avoid going vertical and you are consuming on the horizontal manner, then you are killing the landscape. So for me, product innovation and product development comprises of three things, which is your floor plan, then landscape, and the specification amenities around it you give. Once you have all three things as a collage package, then you see the game. So that's where the changes happen, and we have to think completely different manner. We have to improvise on the product front, because the old way of doing repetition in products or probably delivering in that zone of just sort of a typical 8 to a core buildings, we have to innovate. Sometimes we have to take probably a triangle shape to give a 270-degree ventilation. Sometimes we have to take probably a 2-floor apartment when you are going for a premium to give a 360-degree ventilation, and come up with unique designs which are acceptable, not like as a 8 to a core wherein the middle apartments have only one side ventilation. So from all the perspective, if your cost is going on one side, you can recover that and at the same time maintain your velocity and the cash flows and financial closure. So I think these things a developer has to be, he has to change his mind. Sometimes he should not have to be worried on the cost front. He can recover that on the pricing front, but he has to mix the FSI with the better design to ensure the overall business plan and financial closure has been achieved. And at the same time, he is gaining loyalty on the customer front. He's ahead of his competition on the product front. And then that's where the brand recall value comes. Probably that helps in their business development dynamics also going forward. Once you are good in your product deliveries, also on-time deliveries, then sometimes you don't have to go too much of upfront investment. You get a lot of JDs. So overall hygiene is very important. And the one who focuses on the product and timely delivery, I think he's going to be the leading player in the market that will stay a longer.
Great. Thank you so much, Gopal. And here now, next 10 minutes, I would want to spend with all of you contributing together. And how? Let me explain what I have in mind. The way I look at it, this team can be divided. On one side, you have the youngsters who are into the midst of the technology boom, who are part of it. They're creating all kind of products and services. On the other side, we have users. So I would, if I would put Parth and Gopal on the user side and Abhishek and Aayush on the other side, the technology creator side. And I would place Nihar somewhere in between, because I know as lenders engineer, I have worked with many of such people. Their role is all through from end to end. Nihar would love to see how even a cost of construction construction can be reduced. Nihar would love to see velocity of sale increasing. Nihar would love to see how financial closures can happen efficiently and so on. So he is actually sitting in the center. And both of you guys are on this side, developers, one key stakeholders on this side, technology. So I would call upon to start with Aayush and Abhishek to perhaps make kind of a pitch, which a developer like a Parth or Gopal should not refuse. Then I would call Nihar to give his verdict, which way he thinks that the whole dialogue went on. So over to you, Abhishek and Aayush. Take your call.
You want us to make a pitch? You want us to make... Okay, Aayush, you continue.
We'll give it our best shot. So I might just get a new client here. So I'll take it forward. So I mean, key foundation today is technology. If you don't adopt technology, we all know it's a costly affair. Huge opportunity cost. I think gone are the days where technology was still optional. It's not really an option anymore. It's the need of the hour. And getting technology, be it in pre-handover, post-handover, will just strengthen the organizational immune system within the the developer within the industry. And we've seen a lot of large-scale developers come in and move out. And we discussed this a couple of days as well, that a lot of large-scale developers that were possibly Cat A and had been in the market for decades are no more to be seen. So I think that omnipresence of technology is 100% required within this industry. A couple of things which I'd probably touch base on, which I heard whilst Parth and Gopal both were speaking, was that it's not only just the data side. I'm sure that data, yes, is the new oil. I'm not going to counter that, and there's a lot of usage of the data that we are collecting. But at a lot of times, it is that the tech guys build the tech without actually fitting it into the business, right? And this is what we had faced about 3 years back. I was working in tech, and I understood in terms of tech what needs to be built, what my business would require, what my customers would require. But at that time, it was completely divorced from the business, right? So my tech and business was completely divorced, and it was clearly like a square peg in a round hole. Right, which now a lot of the tech companies have also understood, considering there's so much influx of startups, so much funding coming in, and you're really sort of fighting with each other for this kind of funding post 1-2 years after COVID. A lot of the tech guys have understood that the adoption by stakeholders is not going to happen in the case that the tech and business is divorced. So I think that's just a little bit of context setting and the understanding that a lot of the tech businesses have now got. But for a developer, for somebody who is still focusing on the manual way of operations, if you don't move within, or you don't get onto this bandwagon of tech, somebody else will come and disrupt it. And we've seen that in the past, that a lot of the, as I said, large scale companies are nowhere in the industry because somebody else did come and get the first mover advantage. Yeah, Abhishek.
Since I'm pitching to developers, I only have 5 points for them, and I'll try to keep it short. If you want to know what is the appetite of any market, come to us. Okay, you need data. If you want to know who's selling and who's not selling, come to us. You want to know what is the age profile and the income level of buyers, come to us. So we have answers to every question that you were only anecdotally thinking 5 years back, 10 years back, right? And to ensure that the referee Nihar is on my side, going back to his question, now that we have 15 years of data, 15 into 4 quarters, 60, it is statistically sound, and we can do predictive analytics as well. I'll rest my case.
Good. And before I get the developers to start talking, for both of you, an elevator pitch. Suppose you are with Parth, 2 minutes with Gopal, just one, a quick 2-sentence one, Aayush and then Abhishek.
Yeah, done. So just a quick one, Parth, Gopal, you want to increase your sales by 2x, you can come to us. We know exactly what your resident is buying. We know exactly the app that we have, the resident uses it more than any other social media application on your phone. He opens that app at least 3 times a day, right? So that is 3 times a day opening the application. You know exactly what project he might buy next.
Okay, my pitch is also the app. Open it and you can look at any project of your choice in your favorite city, and it'll tell you the unit number, floor number, area of the apartment, and what your competitor sold it to, and who did they sell it to. If you need that information, open the app.
Well, that's great. From the technology side, over to Parth and Gopal. Take it over, please.
So guys, talking straight pointed question. So I appreciate that what your app is providing, but as a developer, if I want to look at two things, one on the sales side, that how I can reduce my cost of acquisition by having a more target audience oriented business rather than having a more walk-in oriented business. Because every first I have to pay my wage bills, I have to pay my EMIs, I have to pay everything, and we spend so much on acquiring a sale, where the sale in a weaker site is about 2% of walk-in. In a great site is maybe 5% or 4% of your total walk-in. So what solution can you give me on the sales side, that I know that my sales guys are putting in the pitch to the right target audience rather than only let's say the fishers or someone who's just looking around. In terms of, I would like to know, does he have an affordability to buy, or does he have the income ability to spend on that? So how can you integrate your technology which helps me get more conversion rather than more walk-ins?
Over to you, Gopal. Please write down those questions. Aayush and Abhishek, I'm sure these are questions coming to you and perhaps bright ideas. So please hold back till Gopal completes his submission. Over to you, Gopal.
So I think both of them have just talked about app and data. So one way it's definitely helpful to us, but that is not giving us a complete solution. So per se, I think we are using their data for two things. One, when we are looking for a business development opportunity, and if we are looking for any land buying in that particular micro market, so I do not have to send my guys to just search about all 20-25 projects. I just log in, I take their data, and I get all the understanding that these are the 25 projects, how the pricing have moved, and how the overall absorption is happening. And second, probably on the consumer behavior and pattern, to some extent, they are giving us the closed transaction data. So basically, I have met Abhishek, I know him very well. And as Aayush has also pinpointed, post possession, I think he has a fantastic app, and that's going to be a very, very sort of ease of doing business. And it's amazing, helpful stuff. And as far as the data, which is being considered on a registered sale basis, but there are a couple of things which have still not been addressed. Is one, so we want to be a demand creator, right? So sometimes we have to enter into one market, may not be there is a sales history, but you have to come up with the product and you be the demand creator. So to how to be a demand creator, they have to also provide us some sort of a data, like probably if the total sales has happened, what is the percentage of salaried class, what is the percentage of business class, what is the percentage of investor, how the overall sales is happening from all the geographies. This is on the actual front, and also they have to give us some sort of forecasting that the last 3-4 years the CAGR growth is on this front, how they are predicting the next level of growth, and probably we create the kind of products which will not only generate us the desired profitability, desired sales, desired pricing, but at the same time helping us to be the demand creator and not just the product seller. Because on that front, they have to come up with the lot of solution. And while tracking the consumer behavior and pattern, what we are getting is only about that this guy has come from this location and this is his profile. But what he liked, what he don't liked about our product, and how they felt that obviously at one point of time customer will buy our apartment, because if you have decided that in that location he have to get the apartment 20%, he may be compromising on the price he's buying. But wherever he has compromised, we need that input also to improvise on the product and come up day by day. We have to come up with a better solution, and we want to completely be a believer in a TQM principle, total quality management. So a lot of scope is there in the form of data, which will ultimately help us to expand the business and achieve larger targets.
So that it is. So both sides have spoken. Yeah, Parth, sorry, please, Parth.
Only one more thing so that they can think on it and answer, and it becomes interesting. Adding to what he said about demand creator, if you realize our project cycles are minimum 2 years to maximum 4 years, 5 years, depending on how fast we do. We have data of what is previously available, which has been a stimulant to what was to be made or what is sold in the micro market. But we don't have the data that what is actually required in that micro market. Because in 4 years back, a guy before COVID, there was a fad, like we were the first guys in Borivali to start 350 square feet apartments in 2017-18. It did wonderful till 1920. But had I started that same project in 2021, I would have been a massive failure, because then the demand there was of luxury 2 and 3 bedrooms, 700 to 1100 square feet. So the data in your app or in the service that you're providing is giving me what has worked earlier. But if I'm starting a project in 25 or 23 and I'm going to complete in 26, how pointed solution-based information is available, that what is the demand of, for example, that micro market, which will ensure that my absorption of such a large inventory, which I'm risking tremendous amount of equity and borrowed capital, how it will fruitile into a successful business. Over to you all guys.
Sure. Okay, now the tech guys, you have very little time, and please conclude, because my judge also is sitting in the hot seat and he has to give his verdict, and we have to also close. So time is running out. Perhaps a quick 1 minute from each of you. Abhishek, before Nihar takes it over. You're on mute.
Okay, am I going first? So Parth did mention that the second part he mentioned was he wants to know what's going to happen in the future. Now, the event that Parth mentioned was very black swan, so I'm not going to comment on that. That happens once in a lifetime. I hope it never happens again in my lifetime. But given that we have so much bad data and we have economic indicators, income levels, what people like, dislike also to overlay on our property data, we can attempt doing predictive analytics. I'm not saying that we are there yet, because India is still digitizing, as we all know, but at least there's something to look forward to compared to what it was 5, 7, 8, 10 years back. So yes, something is possible. Residential makes it easier because it's far bigger and there's more data available, right? So it's easier to do residential than a mall and a commercial office space.
Over to you, Aayush.
Super. So I'd love to talk in detail. I know we're short on time, but just and I see a potential partnership with Abhishek on this. I'll come to the post handover. So, we have 2 million residents onto the application. That's across 600,000 homes, right? So we are bringing you in that 600,000 as leads. Because as a developer, and we've done this for DLF now, we've very recently gone live on a white label app. DLF is putting up all their new projects onto our application. Which is across their 30,000 users, 30,000 apartments, sorry, that's 60,000 users. They are posting these advertisements onto our application to all these users. So the leads that are generated, there's not much effort that needs to be put down, because as I said, everyone has to download the app. If you're living in a community by DLF, you by default have to download the Anacity application, and you have to use it once or twice a day to let a visitor in, to raise complaints, or to pay your service charges, for example. Right. So yeah.
So there it is. Nihar, over to you. You are in an unenviable position to give your verdict. Over to you, Nihar.
So I think to begin with, thankfully, Abhishek and Aayush both look at products which are probably in different life stages of a customer's journey. So fortunately, I think both are relevant to this discussion. I don't have to form a view between the two. So I think some of the points that Gopal raised, I think they're very valid points, even what Parth raised, right? It kind of goes towards what I was also saying, right, about this predictive analysis. For example, though we say that COVID is a once in a while event, black swan event, but everybody knew that e-commerce is going to do well. Everybody knew that technology is going to do well. Why did nobody think that everybody will want to buy homes, right? And therefore, Resi is going to surge. Everybody put the worst case scenario in all the analysis, all the model thinking is all going to go downhill, right? Look at any other industry, for example. Let's look at cars. The kind of technology and features we have in cars today, right? Nobody went and said that this is what is required, but somehow there is data available to know how people are going to think and what people are going to want as they move forward. I think the biggest point is, and it's probably a necessary step for the next journey, but we are still catching up on what's happened. So everything we're talking about is, what's happened and, trying to catch up on that. The true disruption, I think, will be when we have data to suggest that what's going to happen as a result, right? And I guess to some extent, a lot of data that Abhishek has is going to give some, insight through the keyhole into what's going to happen. And I guess what Aayush's application does, because I'm also a user of a similar application in where I'm staying, But basically, it's a one-stop shop for managing everything, which apart from being information, it also really gives you a good insight into what people want, what people prefer. When they're staying in a complex, nobody knew before what people really look for when they're staying in a society. Now the point is, I guess these applications have been in place about 7-8 years, right? It's a good enough time now for us to see how Parth or now that in place, it's a good enough time now actually use the data from these applications like the one Aayush has to then decide how I need to redesign my building or redesign my spaces so that they can have a better experience afterwards, right? So I think it's a marriage. And I personally think that even developers are still playing catch up on things like sales data and who's buying what. But I don't know. And if I'm wrong, I'm very happy to be wrong. I don't know if people have reached a stage where Gopal or Parth are saying, great, from Aayush's app, this is what I realized, this is what people want, right? This is what people have an issue with. So let me keep that in mind when I design my next building. I think when that entire loop feeds into itself and becomes a circular loop, I think that's when, honestly, I feel disruption will really start because of technology in real estate.
Great, thank you so much. That was quite I would say I couldn't have done that much of an assessment as Nihar has concluded. Thank you so much, Nihar. And, I think last time we're talking about Abhishek was sending me text messages. It's all about disruption. Well, from my side, I have done this bit. I changed the whole way how a seminar is done. This was a disruption where I put the two of you together and made one of him to sit on the verge and give a verdict. So disruption here as well. So here it is. I think we are just about exhausting the time allotted to us, and because we're given the mantle, the stage right in time, it's our duty to give it back again right in time. So here I would call upon Sapna to check if she wants to do some kind of a question answer session before we call it quits. Over to you, Sapna.
Well, I think it was like watching Shark Tank on Realty Plus platform here. So thanks to Mr. Zia. But, I think a lot of points, Mr. Zia, you were able to cover. We have one question which talks about standardization. We are talking about technology. We are talking about standards, real estate. But transparency, while we talk about standardization, is something which is not, discussed quite a lot in terms of technology and how their fitment with real estate. Mr. Zia, your viewpoint on that, how do we bring standardization among processes, technologies?
Sapna, your point is valid. On this platform, what we spoke about was, actually we were debunking standardization. I recall Gopal was talking about this, Parth was talking about it. The whole idea of what should I say, a client requirement to be on the front and tailor-made apartments or spaces to be created, etc., has been the discussion in last 40 odd minutes. But on the other side, there is a huge market, which I believe none of those who are sitting on this platform address, which is the affordable and low-end market. Somewhere, I'm sure Abhishek's data will be able to substantiate that. We want to believe that all the known developers of the country don't cater to more than 10% housing requirement of this country. The remaining 90% is where the standardization comes in as a subject, Sapna. And because our panel is such that most of them are focusing on a certain market, standardization could not be spoken about. And I also don't want to take much time, just say that if it is affordable housing, reputations and doing the same, more of same, etc., comes in because cost is more a question than customer satisfaction, etc., which most of us sitting over here are mostly nominally discussing. So that is why standardization is not here on the stage today. Extremely important. Perhaps you can keep it for some other session. Over to you, Sapna.
Right. So this was all about disruptions, what we can do more customized for the customers, for the end users or for the developers. Another question that we have is about, are we going to see more collaborations, JVs in residential, collaborations between flex and commercial spaces, collaborations between property management and technology? Mr. Zia, you can choose who should take that.
I would love to quickly get somebody like a Parth to, or maybe Gopal, starting with Parth. Would he tie up with Aayush today? Aayush did mention that DLF has interacted with them, and perhaps what appears to be more of a, scratching the surface. The depth of this tech platform is immense. Maybe they're just about starting. But Parth, if it is to be you, How would you answer Sapna's question? Do you see any tie-ups happening with the tech platforms for you to do your business efficiently?
Definitely, Gulam. For example, today we are already talking to a few agencies where post handover can become easy, because we realize that once we get the OC of a building, our facility management team and post handover CRM team is engaged with the society for almost 1.5 year post handover also, leading to redundant teams being absorbed into projects which is not throwing any new cash flows, waste of time, repetitiveness of problems. So there we are talking to agencies, for example, small issues or desnagging issues, that someone's regulator is not working, a flush valve is not working. Why the person needs to call up our person, we call up the agency calls up the society manager, then he sends. There is so much wastage. We are trying to put it up to our agency. I'm going to definitely talk to Aayush for the same, where why don't they put it on the app and the person says this time, this slot, this person will come and he'll address it. Why there has to be so much of...
I will ask Gopal also to answer. Aayush has already got a customer. So Gopal, would you also be...
I'll send you the commission on this, Gulam.
So Gulam and Sapna, I'll answer this in 3 phases, because we typically, as a development process, pre-construction, during and post. And I think we need these tech tie-ups at 2 levels. One, as already Parth has rightly mentioned, which is post-occupation in terms of maintenance, day-to-day updates. But at the same time, once somebody books, so typically the customer should not feel that till the time we want to collect his first check, our sales guys are behind there for 5 calls, 6 calls, and once they have collected the check, then they have to call 10 times and our sales team is answering only for 3 times. So I think to create post-booking entire thing, their entire sort of documentation can be created in a digital manner on the app. Secondly, all updates on the site, like which all slabs have been casted. Suppose if we are sending them the demand letter, everything they can see that whether actually we have casted or not, because sometimes they also feel they have forwarded for the post slab, whether they have casted or not. So the pictures, their demand letters, their documents, everything can be put it on the app in the digital manner, and there we need the tech support so that automatically the CRM efficiency goes to the next level. And see, we being a developer, ultimately to grow in the industry, we have to be very, very effective in our service, and service is going to be the game changer. So first on that front, and the last aspect is post OC. And second part, I think just on your last question, Sapna, on the standardization front, I think I would love to contribute there also. Standardization is very much possible. So basically, let's assume, suppose affordable side, we do G+12, we can create a standard structure. This is the structure, this is the product, these are the specific amenities. Then we go in the 70 meter, the MIG, and then we go the high end and 100 meter. But typically what happens is that one way we are standardizing, but second way at the same time, you people will only ask us that these guys are not upgrading, these guys are not bringing the innovation. So we have to balance it, wherein 75% of first we'll start with 100% standardization, and we have to always keep that 25% room towards upgradation, innovation, and changing as per the consumer behavior and pattern. So that way we can address that. Continuously standardization for next half a decade or 1 decade is not possible. Standardization starting with the 25% of upgradation, innovation, we have to be flexible because the consumer behavior and pattern keep on changing. You look at the sizes, pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, compact to again luxury. So we have to have, then in the tilings also, initially we were just giving vitrified of 30 to 35. Now me and Parth, we know that to have the look and feel of the apartment, we have to go with the vitrified designer tiles. 100 rupees square feet to minimum dalna, otherwise the look will not come, it will look like an affordable product. And then from there to a Khar, Bandra, Santa Cruz side, we have to give Italian marble, and that ranges from 250 to 500 rupees per square feet. So I think those kind of flexibility is required. Even in windows also, sometimes UPVC soundproof, sometimes Finista, and sometimes regular aluminum. So 75% things can be standardized, 25% you have to keep it open. I think due to time constraint, I'm submitting as
correct. I think we got the gist of it, that while we are looking at standardization, it should be there, but we also need to have room for customization as per our client requirements. And yes, collaboration is the way to go. We have seen it here happening right here on this session. So Mr. Zia, just to wrap up this session, your last thoughts.
That I would just want to thank everybody, all the panelists, and it was so it was so enriching. About a couple of days back, we did a mock session, and that mock session was as good as a real session. I was telling somebody we should have actually recorded it and played it instead of doing it physically. So it was so much of fun interacting with all of them, new ideas, young concept, youthful energy. Great. And if you allow me, I would want to say hi to Yash also, long time. He's the next panelist. I don't know if there's a partner. This is a rock solid wall between us, so we can say hi to him. So that's it. Thank you so much, everybody. I enjoyed every moment of this interaction with you all. Hope you all also enjoyed it. And your viewers as well. I hope they had a great time. Over to you, Sapna. Thank you so much.
Yes, we enjoyed it really. The disruptive session, as you said, we have created disruption in this session also. So fantastic. We all enjoyed it and very informative as well. So thanks, Parth, for joining. Abhishek, Gopal, and Nihar, thanks for joining. Ayush, thank you for joining. And Mr. Zia for that wonderful conversation. And I will be going back to that recording that you have shared for the mock call. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here with us, sharing your views and knowledge with us. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank
Thank
you.
you,
Sapna.
everyone.